When Ryan's when it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind Around with John Pollock and Wai Ting. The 18 that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind Around for Monday night, download it Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind Around for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the Mic.
And we are here for another edition of Rewind to Raw. John Pollock alongside Toronto's own Wai Ting. How are you, Wai?
Doing all right, John. Yeah, not so bad. How was your Monday?
My Monday was good. It was this is the post wrestling summer extravaganza get together that we had into the wee hours of Sunday morning. A party that was so wild, it still did not outlast the NWA podcast.
Oh goodness, yeah. Thank you very much for having us over at your in your backyard yesterday, John. I had a really great time.
I woke up today with a branding iron. That is what I acquired from this this party.
Yes. The Terry Funk branding iron finally made it to your
Neighbors
possession.
thought I was nuts when I lit this thing on fire this morning with gasoline. It was crazy.
Yeah, well, that's just part of a wrestling podcaster's life.
Well, we are here to dissect all events from the weekend, which did include the conclusion of the G1 Climax, but more importantly, the climax of the G1 contest that Post Wrestling hosted yet another year in a row. And when we have to go to our stats guru, the man who held this all, and he's got the winners' names in a sealed envelope, has not disclosed it to anybody. There were NDAs involved. We are here to reveal the contents. Who won the G1 Climax contest here at Post Wrestling? We are bringing in our own Price Waterhouse himself. Chris Engler is here to reveal said results. Hello, Chris.
Good evening, John and Wai.
Now tell us how you survived 19 days of data tabulations, updates, and it was quite the race as I was watching from afar.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of takes care of itself once you get the initial data loaded, but yeah, it was a really, really tight contest down to the end as compared to prior years. So both in the main contest and in the post-wrestling family block.
So let's go into, first of all, just some of just your thoughts overall, Chris, about the changes that they made this year, going to the 2-block format this year. How much of the tournament were you following actively, and did you like some of the changes you saw this year?
Yeah, I followed it pretty closely. I was able to watch most shows close to live, just in the early hours of the morning. I like the 2-block format better. I mean, the 4-block experiment was interesting, and I'm sure it's easier on the actual wrestlers just because they're wrestling fewer matches. But from the storytelling perspective, I think you could do a lot more interesting things with the 2 10-person blocks in terms of people jockeying for position, whereas in the smaller blocks, the die kind of seems cast a lot earlier.
I'm curious, Chris, not to say the people who enter this contest are the only people paying attention to New Japan Pro Wrestling, or this is even any sort of major indicator of interest in New Japan. But I am curious, have you noticed a difference in this year's entry levels versus prior years?
It's remained pretty consistent the past couple of years. I mean, I think we had a few more this year than last year, but it was more or less the same at around 227 people entering, which is great.
Interesting.
See that level of interest.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Okay.
Well, why don't you tell us what was the standings like going into this final weekend? How close of a race was this to determine the winner?
It was pretty close. Like, some of the top competitors were within a point of each other. I mean, it was by no means decided. I mean, of course, going in, if you had less than 5 points difference between you and the points leader, you were mathematically eliminated. But much like in prior years, I mean, we did have to go to tiebreakers to determine the ultimate winner. The 2 people. Did we want to go to overall contest winner now?
Yeah,
let's do
we'll
it.
go to that. And we'll just explain for people that maybe were not part of the contest. The setup is that you sit down prior to the G1, you pick all the winners of all the tournament matches. And then should we need a tiebreaker, that's when we go into the ultimate winner of the G1, where you have to go out and pick who the overall winner is. But the floor is yours, Chris.
Sure. And one thing that was kind of interesting to observe in this year's G1, as compared to the last couple of years, there were no draws. And often in the prior contest, the people that had the foresight to pick a draw, that's a way to make up a lot of points, because it's essentially a 2-point swing on everybody if you were one of the two people that actually, or a handful of people that actually predicted a draw. But going into, once the final results were tabulated, the top two people in the contest had accurately predicted, they scored 60 points, which means they guessed 2 out of 3 matches correct from the very start of the tournament without knowing anything, without knowing any of the storylines as they went through to make adjustments. Like, that's pretty impressive to pick 2 out of 3. That's among the highest that we've ever seen. So there were 2 individuals that were jockeying for position throughout the tournament, those being Tom Williams and Chris Elliott 84. And both of those individuals finished with 60 points. So we had to go to our tiebreaker scheme, because at the start of the contest, we also, independent of the individual match predictions, we just asked people to make a prediction of each block winner and a prediction of the overall G1, which doesn't have to line up with their picks. Like, they can just do that for tie-breaking purposes. And I'm pleased to announce that Tom Williams, he accurately had 1 tiebreaker point, because he predicted that David Finlay would win his block. So by a very narrow margin, congratulations to Tom Williams for being the number 1 finisher in the overall contest. I'll let folks read it on the site, because this update's going to be posted, but the race for third was even closer. Like, we had to go to like tertiary tiebreakers there. And Alex Edwards narrowly earned his third place spot. So big congratulations to all three of those people.
Our playoffs might have been more dramatic than the actual G1.
Oh, definitely.
In a certain way, yeah.
Yeah, so again, just to kind of reiterate, congratulations to, in first place, Tom Williams, narrowly edging out in second place through 1 tiebreaker point. Chris Elliott, who really was sort of our dominant, a competitor throughout the entire tournament. And then, of course, in third place, Alex Edwards, who just squeaks by, a bit of a traffic jam for that position. So those 3 win prizes courtesy of chop-tees.com. First place gets $150 to spend in the store. Second place gets $75, and third place gets $25. So you will be hearing from us and the man Dickie Bird himself for hooking all of this up. Thank you very much. chop-tees.com/postwrestling.
Well, let's move on over. If you don't have anything to add there, Chris, let's move on over to the C block. This is kind of the let us say maybe the never open weight championship that everyone was vying for within the post wrestling world.
Yeah, I mean, it was really interesting as compared to last year, because I don't know if you remember, like Brandon Thurston, like he literally climbed from the bottom of
to the penthouse,
to the win. Like, he had a very, I mean, he booked himself like a wrestler. I mean, it was among the most exciting things to watch last year. So I was keen to see if he could repeat that performance this year. But unfortunately, that wasn't in the cards for Brandon this year. But it was interesting to see that Chop Tees actually was frequently at the very top of the leaderboard for the C block. But as we see here, John Cena kind of had a late surge. He was always kind of in the mix, but very definitively winning by a 2-point margin with a very, very respectable 55 points over Chop Tees. And then we had Brad the Archivist copping and Eric Marcotte in a similarly very, very tight race for third. Again, all the details of the tiebreakers are on the site, but pleased to announce that the beloved archivist was able to edge out Eric Marcotte and take third place. But again, very, very narrow margin.
And John and I find ourselves right in the middle of the pack here. John beating me with 1 point at 50 points. I scored 49. All I wanted to do was beat Randobot. So how did Randobot do this year, Chris?
So Randobot, as we see here, got 48 points, which is still greater than 50%, but right around 50%, which, you know, that's what you'd expect a completely set of random picks to do. So Randobot's final score was 48 out of 90, so 53% accuracy. I always like looking at who did better than Randobot in the contest and who did worse. And it was a big swing this year, because last year I think 90% of people did as good or better than Randobot, but this year 112 out of 227, so just under half people did better than Randobot, and then just over half, 51%, did as good or worse than Randobot. So looks like this year's tournament was a little harder to predict than last year.
Yeah,
and then
much like Naito, I think we're gonna have to look at Randobot's eligibility next year for the G1.
He could be relegated. Yeah, I might have to come up with something else. And I always like to put the least points there.
Yes,
it was interesting. It was interesting on the forum. Some people were as excited to be in last as they were to be.
Who wants to come in second or third last? Like, if you're already that far below, who wants to be second last?
You want to be PWI number 500.
That's
not
it.
499.
Joe Rules. That's the award.
So, Jesus, if I'm saying that correctly, Correa has the distinction of scoring the least points. So he is the furthest apart from the way Gato had this tournament planned with 38 points. Chris Thunder from down had 39, and then there were three people. Argo, Dave from Scotland, and Master Bruise had 40.
I think these people should pay Chop Tige. They should be the inverse. We should.
That would really introduce some stakes. Like, they have to fund the winners.
That's capitalism at its finest. When you look at these scores, like, what were the available scores? Like 92-ish, around that.
90 is the most you could score.
90 was the most. So it's like, 38. Like, you're picking blindly here. Like, these are not. I wouldn't even look at these as like embarrassing numbers when you're talking about,
not at all.
Below 50%, but still, I would say respectable that you're picking blind matches. And 38 out of 90. It's it's. I can't say fine showing. You did come in last. I can't. I'm not giving a participation trophy here, but
like, if you're picking blindly, like getting. I would say, if our top performers got 2 out of 3 right, I would say picking blindly, getting worse than 1 out of 3 right is as hard as doing as well as the winners did.
All right. You have a lot of other stats here. Are there any other notable things you think would be of interest to our audience?
There was one. Yes, there were a couple things. I always like looking at the biggest upsets and the most accurately predicted results. And there's one wrestler in particular that factored into for the top 3 biggest upsets and the top 3 most accurately predicted. One wrestler in particular showed up 5 times, both on the biggest upsets and on the most accurately predicted. I'll just maybe get
the same wrestler.
The same wrestler showed up in 5 out of 6 of those top 3. Do you have a guess as to what the biggest upset was? The one that the most contestants got the incorrect result for?
Oh, it has to be. I'm going to go with Callum Newman, one of his wins.
I'm looking at the results, so I already know.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, there you go.
Well, John, you're correct. Callum Newman beating Shota Umino was the only 22 of 227 predicted that correctly. That surprised me that more people thought Callum would beat Shingo Takagi than Shota Umino. I would have probably flipped those, but it's still
without Callum Newman. I might have won the C, but I had him going 0-9 in my bracket, so he messed with me plenty. So that was my undoing, was Callum Newman this year.
And as we see here, the most accurately predicted result was, and it's appropriate considering who went on.
Everyone just picked Callum Newman to lose. So I got these 3 right.
Yeah, but these are pretty. I mean, those are pretty reasonable guesses. Like,
yeah. Shout out to the 12 of you that had Callum beating Zach.
But I enjoyed a lot of Callum Newman's matches. I thought he showed up really well in an underdog's effort. So,
with all due respect to WH naming him the Prince of Paisley White.
Yeah, maybe he needs to spend some time in the tanning bed.
Well, there we have it. Well, all the results can be found up at postwrestling.com/G1. You can go through yourself if you made your predictions, find out where you faced, and if you edged out someone by 1 point, you can hang that over them for an entire year beginning now.
And the one last stat I wanted to point out was the most perfect days. Congratulations to Chris from Maryland, who predicted 3 perfect 5-point days, which is lower than prior years. So it just speaks to how challenging it was to predict perfectly. And he had them all bunched up towards the end, days 11, 13, and 14.
Okay, well, there we have it. Congratulations to all that, not just the winner that is outlined, but also maybe you got something like Chris from Maryland here, leaving with multiple awards that you get out of the post-wrestling G1 contest. And again, a big thank you to chopped-tees.com for their support this year of the contest. And maybe we should send them a branding iron as a thank you for sponsoring this year's tournament.
I wonder if they sell those. Yes.
I think it's only fair.
Yeah.
All right.
And thank you, Chris, as always, every single year providing this amount of entertainment and engagement for people as they follow their G1. I don't know if you have anything to promote, but, the field is yours, whatever you kind of want to do with the space.
You always ask me this and I never have anything. So I made a point of having something this year. So if you go to my X account at CEngler42, one of my little distractions that I enjoy is the NJPW collection app. So I've pinned my user ID there. So if people want to trade virtual cards on the NJPW collection app, there's my user ID.
Okay. Well, there you go. You can now go into hibernation, and we'll be knocking on your digital door around Royal Rumble time.
Sounds great. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. Have a great night, Chris, and thanks for all your help this year.
You're welcome. It's a lot of fun.
Okay, everybody.
Take care, Chris.
There you have it. The G1 contest in the books. Did you do better or worse than you expected going in?
Probably about average, like right in the middle of the pack. They're very difficult to predict. I mean, I still don't really have a strategy, this deep into it.
Well, let's move on and talk about the G1 itself and how it concluded over the weekend. There was a lot of news coming out of New Japan, not just from the G1 Climax, but a lot of announcements on Monday. Let's start off with the headline of Zack Sabre Jr. winning this year's tournament, defeating Yota Tsuji in the final on Sunday. And number one, what did you think about the outcome with Zack Sabre Jr. getting the victory?
I mean, I can't say I was that surprised. I mean, it really did kind of come down to either Yota Tsuji or Zack Sabre Jr. as like I think most people's picks, to win the tournament. But I definitely thought it would be Tsuji getting that spot. I just felt like it was more of his sort of like destiny, no pun intended, to face Tetsuya Naito at Wrestle Kingdom. I certainly, for that reason, thought that he would have been the one, because I think New Japan wanted to make a bigger push for like a new generation. But seeing the way Zack performed throughout the tournament, and especially the way he performed in the match itself, and the amount of like love that Japanese audience was showing him, he completely fits the bill as like, a new direction and a new homegrown, at this point, essentially homegrown talent, or at least somebody who's spent like 8 years in this company, to sort of be that flag bearer. So I definitely enjoyed the decision. I loved the match. I think it was the match of the tournament for me, the final between Zack and Tsuji. And I think, like a lot of people, the big sort of surprise was the announcement at the end.
That's right. I thought like you had two options here. I was like you, and I thought that this was Tsuji's tournament to win. But we have also seen, as much as we reference like the ascent of Okada and how hard they went with him, like a lot of Ghetto's style is the long, drawn out path and presenting failure on that road before you get the big win. Now, Tsuji is young enough, you can do that, but they're certainly in a process where you want to be I think fast tracking a Tsuji, and I think this tournament ultimately has moved him. This last weekend, I think he really stepped up in a lot of these matches. Now, the counter with Zach is that here is someone that is still, 37 years of age. It's not as though this guy he has a lot of years on his career, but he is someone that is operating at an incredible level that, as New Japan can still promote as this is what some might deem as you can at least make the argument that we have one of the greatest wrestlers in the world on top of us. And, it'll be very interesting for this October set of shows. They announced afterwards that Zach is not going to wait until Wrestle Kingdom to cash in his title shot. Instead, he's going to challenge Tetsuya Naito October 14th at Sumo Hall, the same venue where the finals were staged, and challenge him at King of Pro Wrestling. And that comes 6 days before they go to London for Royal Quest 4, which becomes very tricky because you cannot promote a main event for that London show until King of Pro Wrestling is over. You're going to be selling this show, and yes, there's the chance that Zach will be defending the title the next weekend. There's also the chance you could do some kind of finish on Sunday or on Monday so that you can come back with a rematch at Royal Quest. They could have Zach come up short. I don't like that option, but what did you think, first of all? And also keeping the Tokyo Dome now wide open for somebody to challenge for the title.
Yeah, I think like a lot of people may be suspecting this probably has something to do with the state of Tetsuya Naito. And we wonder if this was an audible call at some point during the tournament to do something like this so that we could fast track the title change to a Zack Sabre Jr. So that Naito could take time off. This is only, I think, what people are speculating. I don't dislike it. I think maybe they could have forced Naito to just kind of bear this, for the next 4 or 5 months to make his way over to the Tokyo Dome. But I wouldn't even feel confident that the match would be of a certain standard and quality that I think would meet what people's expectations would be of a Tokyo Dome main event. So let's clear the deck, give the title to Zach, let him promote this Royal Quest to make it feel like it's a bigger than usual show, and give us something fresh. And maybe that's where you crown a Tsuji. That's where you pick a different Japanese star to go up against the very dominant Zack Sabre Jr. I think with this Royal Quest show, they have to either way, having the G1 winner Zack Sabre Jr. Being advertised to appear on the show still feels like a big enough deal to me. The homecoming of the first English G1 winner, I think, is in itself a pretty big deal.
Would this match be better served for a week later?
You mean to do this match at Royal Quest instead of in Japan? I think New Japan is ultimately a Japanese business, and I think doing it at Ryogoku is probably. I can't see them making a decision other than that.
Yeah, it's some very interesting decisions, and we don't know the status of Naito. I think that there's a lot of let's look at the fact that this was hardly a great G1 for him. It was also 9 matches. And I would say if they were that concerned, I don't think he's doing the Kobe show at the end of the month. And that really does feel like a lame duck match that he's going to have with Great O'Khan. They did set up the angle. You knew you were going that way after this weekend, but that's September 29th. And then you will have 3 weeks later, King of Pro Wrestling, and the following weekend, Royal Quest 4. And somewhere in all of this, you do have to set up a challenger for January 4th, and maybe another one for January 5th if you're going to do an IWGP title match with AEW the next night as well. So there's a lot going on, and you can't discount the idea that a Yota Tsuji ends up in a prominent role at the Tokyo Dome. But I would say it's the one thing is, as much criticism as you may have for Naito, this is still their biggest star. And you could argue that, can they sell a Tokyo Dome without Naito in your featured match? Match quality and star quality don't always intersect. And just because one has dropped over this last month doesn't mean the star quality has.
the same time, they have an AEW roster that they can work with. You know, like if there's a time to bring over a Kazuchika Okada back to New Japan, I think it would be for one of those shows. If there's a time to bring a Will Ospreay back, you know, you don't have to just solely rely on your championship match to be the thing that, you know, gets people to sell tickets. I think in an ideal world they would love to have Tetsuya Naito in that lead spot, but this is not necessarily an ideal situation for him.
What did you make of the attendances over the weekend? So on Saturday's semifinal, I mean, they were down about 1,200 people from last year's semifinal. The finals drew just over 8,000. They were only slightly under last year's final, which had Naito and Okada. I would say the finals, that would be a feather in their cap. That it's, I think the G1, that still resonates with a lot of people, and I think it was a pretty good sign of the it was a fresh finals as well. You were going to have a first-time winner regardless between Tsuji and Zack Sabre Jr. So, I mean, this year's attendance, it was down from last year, but it was like we knew going in this was a rebuilding year. Are you encouraged by what the goals were of this tournament, and do you think they were achieved in that sense?
I am, like, just, and I don't know if I can use so much, like, you know,
you're a perfect example, Wade, because you're not watching every single New Japan show, but you were into all of the G1, and if it held your interest, like, you were the type of fan that they were trying to look at, and were you impressed with some of the talent you saw?
Because it's a rebuilding year, I wouldn't, to me, like, necessarily look so much at the statistics of attendance as any sort of indicator of like how successful this year's tournament was. I more so look towards like online buzz, like I think reviews from, you know, like people who watch the tournament to be able to say, has this made you more excited about the next generation of New Japan stars? And I think they did a great job with several names. You know, some names you kind of wish that they would have done better with. But, you know, as far as like building somebody like I'm going to even say Yota Tsuji, you know, taking him all the way to the finals and giving him a great match with Zack Sabre Jr. I think like you're setting the stage for him to be very close to winning that championship. And by telling a longer story and setting a longer path for him to get there, I think is going to be ultimately beneficial for him. Unfortunate what happened to Yuya Uemura. We don't know how far he was going to go into the tournament before his injury, but hopefully
I love the spot though with like the deadbolt with Tsuji, and just tying those two together as your generational rivals. And I just thought that spot was so brilliant, utilizing that.
Yeah. And of course, Zach, you know, like being elevated to the next level by winning the tournament. Gabe Kidd, somebody who I think has made a lot of waves. Konosuke Takeshita, even though we don't exactly know, you can argue he might be the one to gain the most from this G1, even though we don't know exactly how much he'll be utilized going forward with New Japan.
Yeah. I thought it was a pretty enjoyable tournament just because of, like, you know, it was a fresh focus on a lot of different stars and who was going to step up in a lot of these big positions. And I mean, it just, when I saw Brandon kind of outline the attendance figures, like when we look back at this year, they sold 48,683 tickets over 19 shows. And in the last decade, they peaked at over 92,000 tickets in 2019. Like that's where things were rolling in a decade ago up until, well, right before the pandemic and before the launch of AEW. So, I mean, you know where things are going, and it's going to be a very difficult battle for New Japan. You're going to have to be fighting just the state of the Japanese yen. There is the fact that you have two massive companies that are going to have their eyes. They're always going to be in an arms race to find the next stars. And as we've seen with Okada, like no one is going to be that sacred person that will never go over there. I think it's hard to imagine that anybody would absolutely not go over there beyond like a Tanahashi. Zach seems to be one of those people, though, and I think WH, like, I liked his comparison of looking at him as sort of this Stan Hansen role that you can get a nice long reign out of, and who is going to be that Masawa that is going to be the one that unseats him. But you can have a really nice run here with Zach. You can put him with heels or baby faces, and you have this claim that we have the best wrestler in the world. You can make that argument with Zack Sabre Jr. and Willie Click in a main event position. Like he's kind of been right near that tippy top area, and this was the year they finally decided to go all the way with him.
I'll tell you, I definitely think like his reaction to winning the G1 felt incredibly genuine, of somebody who thought this to be his WrestleMania, or at least like a very close, sort of career pinnacle to his WrestleMania. So I firmly believe him when he says like he never dreamt of like being in the WWE or like, I don't know, headlining Madison Square Garden or whatever. Like I believe him when he says that this is his dream, being a part of New Japan and being a leader in the Japanese scene.
Offer me a contract, 205 Live? Are you kidding?
I hope to hear a lot more of those.
I have to work on that one. I did, last thing on the G1 and we'll move on. I really did love the backstage interview he did. And the fact that he brought up Noah and Yoshinari Ogawa. I mean, I just thought that was really cool that here he is. Yeah. He's on the precipice of this massive push here in New Japan, but he still has those links to Noah, which was his foundation in Japan.
Completely, yeah. I think for years, like people were discussing, hey, like this guy wrestling this sort of like unique technical style that's for a lot of people not the most fan friendly. His skinny frame doesn't necessarily suggest like ace of a company, even a foreign ace of a company. I mean, I think we're pretty much all in agreement that those things are kind of overblown. Those criticisms are overblown. Those worries are overblown. What you're seeing right now is very much, I think, a finished product. Zack Sabre Jr., who could very much lead a company.
All right, let's move on. Phil Donahue passed away on Sunday, a legendary daytime talk show host. And while his connections to pro wrestling, they don't go too deep, he did a pro wrestling show as part of an AWA show in the early 80s. But the show he is always going to be remembered for came in the height of the Ring Boy and steroid scandal in March of 1992. I'm sure many people that are listening to this have probably seen the episode. It's really great that you have the technology that so many of these types of things are preserved through video. But it was I actually ended up rewatching this today, just kind of refreshing myself on it. And I mean, it was something else to see Vince McMahon in that position and just all the games that were going on at the time. This came after Tom Cole and Chris Lose, who were the two ring boys, had gone forward in the San Diego Union Tribune alleging allegations against Mel Phillips, of company executive, in Tom Cole's case, being propositioned by Terry Garvin, and also like inappropriate action by Pat Patterson. And it led to the three stepping down. Mel Phillips would never come back to the company, nor would Garvin, but Pat Patterson would. And this was, it was largely, you were getting like the New York Post coverage through Phil Mushnick, and it was like a lot of tabloid, like magazine style shows. Like you had your A Current Affairs or Geraldo that were covering this, and Phil Donahue did a whole hour on this show. And the key guests initially Vince McMahon was not they didn't know what Vince McMahon's status was going to be. And I mean, they had your wrestlers in Bruno Sammartino and superstar Billy Graham on the panel. You had Dave Meltzer and John Arezzi as the two guests. And then Barry Orton, who had alleged that back in 1978, he had been in a car. This was outside of the WWF, between Terry Garvin and Pat Patterson, and that they were, making advances at him, making him feel very uncomfortable, and introducing like the notion. It's interesting to watch this in 1992 eyes, where they're looking at, well, what does this big tough pro wrestler have to be worried about some guy coming on to him, and introducing like what a power imbalance is in an industry like this, where somebody is the booker or someone that has power over you, and making that power imbalance something that can lead to power being abused. And if you watch this show, like, no one has to look far today with all the obits on Phil Donahue of like what a seasoned pro this guy was. But I've seen lots of great television hosts and reporters that when they have to muddy their image by talking about professional wrestling, they just hold their nose up at it. That was not this guy took this very seriously. He had to play quarterback with a lot of giant personalities and keep them all in line, while also trying to take a very tricky story, explain it in basic terminology to your audience, while also working a live crowd entertaining the viewer at home. This is still a television program that is done for entertainment, even when it's reporting on hard news. He just did as good a job, I think, as you could ask for a host. When, like, this is 1992, I wouldn't bank on in 2024. If we took whatever your Phil Donahue equivalent was today and applied him to oversee a panel that includes a Vince McMahon that had, like, this story's been told many times, but at this point, Tom Cole has secretly made a deal to go back to the WWF. And he's actually seated in the audience with Linda McMahon, with Miss Elizabeth, and he is there as this bullet in Vince McMahon's chamber that the second Tom Cole's name is raised by a member of the panel to accuse Vince McMahon and bringing up the allegations by Tom Cole, bang, there goes Vince McMahon to be able to point to Tom Cole and discredit whoever brings his name up. And it's the big moment for Vince McMahon to have his vindication of making the others look foolish, that here is Tom Cole that's there to side with Vince McMahon. Like, there was a lot of chess going on, and probably gave Vince McMahon the confidence to, at the last minute, agree to appear in studio with a lot of contentious personalities that were not on his side in this, and have that. And, the most... I would say memorable part of this show is the confrontation from Murray Hodgson, who was the ring announcer that was let go. And if you watch this clip of him just taking apart Vince McMahon, Vince McMahon was just overwhelmed by Murray Hodgson, who came at him like a prosecutor. And you would think that this guy was like, first of all, how did they get rid of this guy who was just outstanding in this role? Now, later, it would come out there would be a lot of credibility issues with Murray Hodgson. His lawyer would end up dropping him and just calling him a lifelong con man. We never got a true breakdown. Like, Murray Hodgson is someone that, still alive, but I mean, it just kind of disappeared after filing his civil suit against the company. But if you watch this clip, man, did Murray Hodgson come at this guy extremely hard. And it's a fascinating hour of television. It's chaotic at certain times, as this format would lend itself to be, but it was probably, even if you have not followed the Ring Boy scandal or the steroid scandal, it's probably the piece of media that you've been exposed to the most from that coverage of the time.
Yeah. Almost begs for a Dark Side of the Ring, just talking about everything coming out of this Phil Donahue episode.
I mean, sadly, a lot of the key players, for instance, Tom Cole, are no longer alive, because there's a lot to be spoken about that scandal that some people have revisited in the wake of all of the allegations against Vince McMahon and Janelle Grant. But I think there's also a large part that know very little about the Ring Boy scandal. And even watching the Donahue show, it's presented as the Ring Boy scandal is the focus, but it's really more the steroids that get the attention. It's Chris Engler and David Bixenspan did a really great breakdown of this story, and one of the things was that their takeaway, and I don't disagree, was especially in 1992, stuff like steroids, easier to easy fodder for people to have. It's very uncomfortable to talk about underage kids being taken advantage of, people being, the allegations of that, very uncomfortable for people that, it just did not necessarily resonate the same way steroids do. That's a hot button topic in that era. So a very interesting episode to go back, and yes, rest in peace to Phil Donahue. And the last things here, Judge Richard Boulware has set the trial date for Cung Lee and the antitrust suit against the UFC. It is set for February the 3rd of next year in Vegas. And Judge Boulware has stated that they will not be changing this date unless he approves of a new preliminary settlement agreement between both sides. So this is not some moving target that this could change. He's pretty locked into this date. And if this goes to trial, the plaintiffs need to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt and have a unanimous decision rendered by the jury. So it's like, as you've seen, like the plaintiffs are, it's not like they're salivating to go to trial. They were very happy to take away the $335 million, as was TKO. So we are going to see if, like, essentially the judge is stating, you guys can come with another settlement, but it's got to meet my threshold. And what is that threshold? Like, you had two sides that they agreed. So how high do you go, and what changes need to be made? Really interesting that this case has been brought back from the dead, because this thing was all but signed and sealed and a part of TKO's past. And you have to wonder if a trial date, if that's going to scare the TKO stock, because this was, considered something that they had avoided with a $335 million price tag. So that's the latest on the antitrust case. Are we going to Vegas next February?
For this, yeah, instead of WrestleMania,
let's just set up shop there from February through April, and
yeah, okay, sounds like
we'll take in some
idea.
UFCs, and we'll get some seats at the Apex.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe stay through Mania.
We'll stay at the Sphere.
Yeah, we can leave right before the main event of WrestleMania. Get back to our place.
Okay. Yes.
Our 2.5 month residency. Maybe we can get a site fee. You and I, post wrestling's first site fee.
TBD.
Okay. That is it for the news portion. We're going to get going here. We're 40 minutes deep into Raw from Monday night from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Or as it was referred to many, many times, South Florida. South Florida. We got a few Fort Lauderdale references. And WrestleTix reporting over 11,500 tickets distributed. The number they gave out on screen was 13,718. And this is Pat McAfee's final Raw for a while, with college football season beginning. And the man seemed very emotional about having to, between his Instagram story and tonight, it didn't feel like this guy was like jumping to go into college football. It seemed like he really enjoys his gig. Tonight was the first time it's like, I really get it, why this guy must be going through a super arduous travel schedule to make Raw every Monday night. I think he legitimately loves doing this because, as we've said many times, he's not in a position where he needs to be doing this, but opts to anyway. And it sounds like he is more than happy to be back as soon as football's done.
That seems pretty clear. It seems clear that he loves this. It seems clear that they love him. But even so, I find it pretty unusual for the WWE to make such a big deal about, like, I don't know, a 3-4 month hiatus from one of their announcers. It was almost like they were making too big a deal out of this, like they did more for this guy leaving for 4 months than they do for usual, like, wrestler retirements. So, I mean, I understand what it is. Like, Pat McAfee is a commodity for them to help them, get a foot in the door of, like, the mainstream media, and they want to make a bigger deal out of, like, their association with him than usual. But still, it's like, it felt like it almost they were making too big of a stink out of this.
Keep this photo up. Do you remember that famous photo of Robbie Lawler asleep at the Strikeforce press conference?
That I do not know. But
you don't remember this very famous press conference with Robbie Lawler, because it looks like he's taking a bit of a snooze here in this front row behind Pat McAfee.
He appeared on camera like throughout the entire show. I would assume this was just a 1 second. There are long commercial breaks here. For these shows.
No one's gonna find this picture. Sorry, Robbie. We're always watching. So there we have the arrivals, including CM Punk in a Cora Jade t-shirt. And the Terror Twins are here. Yeah. This was my week where I, when it comes to buying and selling, I'm selling the Terror Twins. I'm over this one.
I appreciate, like, their efforts to brand and to give a tag team name to this mixed match tag team. Terror Twins is a little.
I almost think I could find it passable if they were not referring to themselves as the Terror Twins. Leave that to Cole and McAfee, because they sound so silly. All of a sudden, we're like, could you imagine you and I just came up with, like, some alliteration and called ourselves, like, how silly is this?
Is it any sillier than, like, I don't know, the Post Wrestling Cafe, Rewind of Raw? Like, those aren't necessarily great names either.
No, that doesn't describe you and I, though. Like,
we should have a twin name, yeah.
Okay.
The Talking, I can't even. Throw your suggestions in the comments.
Randy Orton comes out, and he gets a big reaction. Says that Florida sounds mighty froggy tonight. And Gunther made it personal last week, bringing up my father and grandfather. Then He turned his back, so I gave him an RKO. And Gunther comes out, and the crowd is chanting USA and said that he was blindsided and that the fans possess 3 brain cells between them. Gunther then makes a grand promise that Randy will never hit him with another RKO. Orton, you are going to leave a bloody mess in Berlin, and you will be exposed as a very successful yet very underachieving one-trick pony.
Mm-hmm.
At least give him his credit. He's been successful.
Sure, but he should have been the most successful.
Orton then says Gunther is going to have a size 15 extra wide boot stuck up his ass on the flight over to Germany, which you might have to declare. And Kaiser then jumps Orton. He gets sent to the floor. Gunther attacks, and this leads to a chop block by Kaiser and an announcement of tonight's main event, Randy Orton versus Ludwig Kaiser.
Mm-hmm. Pretty good segment. You know, in terms of substance, I don't think these promos necessarily added much, but I thought they did do a good job of like cementing how personal the feud was, stemming from, I think, what was a very good segment last week. As always, you can depend on like incredible crowd reactions for Randy Orton, and I think that's really affected Gunther's as well, because I don't know if I've ever heard an audience as loud as they were for Gunther's speaking segment as they were for this one. He was getting like Dom levels of heat here.
Well, I wouldn't say this blew me away, but at the very base level of this program, Randy Orton believes he deserves a title match. So already this is that checks the box, the bare minimum for
as opposed to what Danielson,
Kevin Owens.
Oh, okay, right.
But I mean, we could also
Danielson too.
We could talk about Danielson, who's perfectly content to retire after Sunday. Yeah, sure. I think at the bare minimum, you've got to want the championship you're asking your audience to root for.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They showed the replay of Pete Dunne jumping Sheamus, attacking his hand last week, and Jackie interviews Sheamus, who has the hand wrapped up, and refers to Pete, "Don't call me Butch Dunne." And he's out for retribution, and he's been around longer than these young Thundercats, and he's still got some tricks. Really dated himself with a Thundercats reference.
Well, he's old, you see.
That's the gimmick, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What should he have said? Paw Patrol? Would that have helped?
I'm gonna beat him till he's black and bluey in the face.
Yes.
Sheamus versus Pete Dunne, a great match between these two. Sheamus misses a brogue kick right away. They fight to the floor, and Dunne drop kicks him into the steps, injuring the hand by stomping it. We come back, and Cole explains that Sheamus came up with that stupid nickname and nearly ruined the man's career.
Yes. Let's just
damn the person that came up with this stupid nickname. What an asshole.
So let's be clear about this, okay? Butch was not his nickname. Butch was his name.
Yeah.
His nickname was the Mangy Mutt. Okay? Like that he really should have been mad about that one.
That should be used more than Butch.
Yeah.
In reference to the old character.
Try to get the crowd to chant Mangy Mutt.
That's what I want. It's like, no, Sheamus, it was not a nickname of endearment. You ordered me to be a dog. A real dog. Sheamus just eats shot after shot, and then I had to listen closely, but it sounds like what he said was, it was quiet, but he was like, "Are you Butch or are you a bitch?" And he just screamed at Dunne, one of our many bitches on this show. And the 10 beats were stopped. Dunne snaps the fingers, hits his own 10 beats before Sheamus comes back, does his version, and then we get Dunne stopping a brogue kick and tries for a moonsault off the turnbuckle and gets walloped with this flying knee strike. This looked incredible. White noise off the turnbuckle, countered with a powerbomb, and then Dunne traps Sheamus's hand inside the turnbuckle pad, and as he goes to punch or to kick it, Sheamus tears off the buckle, hits the brogue kick, and he puts Butch down in 11 minutes and 26 seconds.
Mm-hmm. I thought this match was awesome.
This was a great match.
Yeah. Sheamus continues to emerge as this like unexpectedly amazing underdog babyface wrestler who, whenever he's fighting from beneath, I mean, he spent most of his career, I think, not being that role. You know, either he's playing heel or he's like just a pretty dominant wrestler for the most part. But like in this run, he's playing sympathetic babyface, and he's doing a hell of a job at it, and I think so much of that is because of the goodwill he's built up with the audience up until this point, so that he's now become like a really effective sympathetic figure. His comebacks are great. They're very effective at evoking strong reactions from the crowd. His offense, whenever he gets those comebacks, is as hard hitting and awesome as usual, but now he's got like really great selling and really great sympathy to go along with it. So like this is the best I've ever seen Sheamus. It's my personal sort of like most the most I've liked Sheamus as a wrestler. And great finisher with that incredible timing on that knee to counter the moonsault. I also thought Pete Dunne looked really good here. They're utilizing him in the ways that they should have from the very beginning, by emphasizing on his technical ability and making him feel like he's a threat, somebody capable of putting pressure on Sheamus because he's so technically advanced, targeting that injured arm. So he looked like a really serious threat here, despite losing, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, it might be nitpicking. I don't think it is, but you also are, from the Kevin Owens school of rankings. This guy's in a #1 contenders match tomorrow night to get a shot at the NXT championship as well. Maybe Sheamus is going to take his place tomorrow. Shouldn't he?
I guess the injury, Well, do you think this is them like, okay, Pete Dunne loses here, but they have him win the #1 contenders match? Is this, their way of booking? Does Pete Dunne get hurt by losing two matches in a row across 2 nights?
I would just say if this guy's headlining No Mercy, I would have been holding off on this match for another 2 weeks until we get through that.
Yeah, this feud didn't necessarily serve a greater purpose, I guess. It kind of carried Sheamus through a few weeks before he gets the Kaiser. But it's almost kind of felt like a filler in that sense. And you can argue, though, Raw is the bigger priority and NXT is, not.
New Day is with Odyssey Jones, and Kofi and Xavier Woods have a heart-to-heart after Jones walks out of the room, and Woods just says that he wishes Kofi spoke to him about bringing Jones in. It feels like you're trying to replace Big E. Kofi denies that he's trying to replace Big E and mentions how they struggled in the early days of the New Day, but they persevered because they're family. Nothing will ever change that. And I just thought as veterans, we could do the same to help Odyssey Jones, who's in the same spot we were 10 years ago. And this is enough to get Xavier Woods on board. And he agrees with Kofi as Odyssey comes in, and we're given the illusion that they're all on the same page.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was a nice little skit to carry the story along, give a little break to the tension between the two, and just kind of provide a bit of a calm before the storm, so to speak. This was, I think, the first time in weeks that we've heard Kofi actually speak like a real human being, rather than this like over the top, overly enthusiastic like caricature of a guy who just like is almost so like excited that he doesn't feel real. So that was nice. It was good to have them verbalize and make clear some of the inner monologue concerning like the tension surrounding Big E and a replacement to Big E. So we know exactly now what's going through Woods' mind, and that Kofi does not have those intentions. But it does set the stage for a turn from either one of them.
Hey, Xavier, I just wanted to let Odyssey do the entrance just once. He's just going to go on the microphone and ask. He's just going to do the entrance just once.
Yeah, we're just giving him an opportunity. It doesn't mean anything more than that. Now, this is all made especially more ridiculous because they're dressed as the Ninja Turtles.
You have to kind of overcome the visual here of these two men having a real heart-to-heart in their goofy Michelangelo and Donatello outfits. Mm-hmm. Then there was footage of all the major athletes that received their legacy championship belts, their $600 belts at Fanatics Fest. I'm sure they were invoicing all of these athletes. Sold out sessions with the WWE talent. I don't know what this whole arrangement is for WWE with Fanatics Fest, but they promoted this so hard on TV for 2 months. And I just have to think this was a giant business deal for WWE to be involved. And as Brandon had reported, like the WWE, like they were like the big movers for their sessions and stuff. Like they more than carried their weight at a fan fest that had a ton of like mainstream athletes attached to it. So it sounds like this was a hell of a coup for WWE. And I mean, they promoted the hell out of this. This was on every TV for the last 2 months that they plugged this.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like from some of those reports and also just seeing the response that a lot of these talents seem to receive at the festival, it seemed like beyond just maybe whatever financial success they would have had from the event itself, I think the promotional aspect of it was probably very beneficial for them, to be able to be on the same stage as these mainstream athletes and to arguably be more successful at garnering, crowds than they were, I think is another one of those like sort of TKO things that
and handing
sure
out those
they're
belts
after.
like it's a very smart marketing move. Like when you're getting photo ops with all of these major athletes holding their replica belts and customized belts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes you want to buy one, right, John?
Everything can be monetized. Everything can be monetized. We saw a video for Braun Breaker. This was quite a lengthy video going through his NXT highlights, shots of his father, Rick, and he's here to dominate. He's here to break people, and they focused quite heavily, too, in the video on the destruction of Ricochet. I mean, it was not just some glancing shot. They showed, like, multiple angles of his attack on Ricochet and then beating Sami Zayn for the title.
Well, at this point, he's responsible for Ricochet's exit from the company.
He killed him.
He did, yeah. No update, just vanished.
American Made is with Ivy Nile, who is lifting weights. They have got their brand new T-shirts. And Gable says Ivy made the best decision, dropping that dead weight of Alpha Academy that he calls a failed experiment. And Nile says, I'm the real deal. I'm the pit bull. And they're going to finish off Alpha Academy tonight and then focus all their attention on the Wyatt Six, and then they put their fists in. How are we made? American made. This is what corny. I want you and I to do every time we like are together and we're going our separate ways.
Yes. I love it.
This was amazing. I couldn't believe they kept straight faces for this. I love it.
Oh, you could tell the moment they hit cut, they're probably cracking
American made.
Yeah. I love it for these guys. Like they come across so douchey and like just like they're going to the polling booth and who exactly they're voting for. Sorry, but like it's just like
they didn't have their TVs on Monday night.
I don't know, but they feel like they're great heels right now. I'm loving this team. Yeah.
Okay. Maxxine Dupri was supposed to take on Ivy Nile, but we never got a match. The bell never rang. Maxxine went after her, sending her to the floor and hit a fisherman suplex. So we weren't going to Manami Toyota moves, but fisherman nonetheless, and throws Nile over the desk, and then Nile drops her inside the ring, is stomping her, and the lights go out. And that's our way to get out of this match. And the Wyatts appear in the ring. Nikki Cross is there. American Made is cornered by the other members with Gacy, Loomis, and Rowan attacking, and then Gable is left alone, hit by a Sister Abigail from Uncle Howdy, and they pose over top of Chad Gable. And we can just cut to the announcement that next week, Uncle Howdy will take on Chad Gable in Providence, Rhode Island. So a singles match for Bo Dallas. Wade, do you want to tell me what year was Bo Dallas's last professional wrestling match?
Interesting. Oh, WWE. Well, just period, right?
Period.
Okay. So I'm guessing B team. I'm guessing 2021.
November 13th, 2019 was his last wrestling match, teaming with Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode against the Lucha House Party and Shorty G.
Okay, full circle.
So
full circle.
Maybe they were both scarred from those runs.
5 years he hasn't had.
I could not believe that this man has not had a match in nearly 5 years.
Wow, amazing.
So okay, anyway, that's coming up next week.
Yeah, they've been very successful. Like, man, I'm very impressed because up until this point, this many weeks into this gimmick, they haven't screwed it up yet. This is still a gimmick that is receiving great reception from this audience. They, I would say, still feel special. The moment these lights go out, the audience goes crazy for them. I think they've been successful in translating the sort of the three of them, the trios team within them into a live stage setting for their match. So I'm curious to see what they do with Uncle Howdy. I think the pressure's still on. Uncle Howdy has to, deliver a satisfying experience in this match with Gable. It's in some form, whether it just be like the stage show or just a wrestling match itself. So we'll see what he has. And
They've waited 5 years for this rematch between them.
Yes, of course.
Tape promo with the Terror Twins, and they call this version of the Judgment Day lame, and they're going to take them out. And it says, but the Terror Twins stood their ground, and you're going to receive your punishment at Bash in Berlin. There's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Rhea says the two of them kept Dominik safe all this time. Liv, you're what you despise, a discount version of Rhea Ripley. And at Bash in Berlin, the Terror Twins are going to put you through the mat.
Right, yes.
American made.
Yeah.
I hated this.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of whatever. It's fine. Like, I think the kids like it, which this feels kind of like might be marketing.
I saw one Terror Twin sign in the crowd tonight, so there's
Sure.
that. There's that.
Yeah.
One of 12,000.
I'm curious to know who gets to keep the color purple, okay, as part of their backstage lighting. Because, I mean, you can't have two warring factions both, wear the same colors, right?
Maybe that'll be saved for the draft. Purple will be assigned to one side or the other.
Okay.
Then it's time for CM Punk to come out and talk about the Florida Panthers and Roberto Luongo, who they put up a backstage interview with Jackie Redmond with Roberto Luongo, and Punk comes in and he's just gushing over this guy. I mean, he was so excited to meet Roberto Luongo.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I wonder who would he be more excited to meet or talk to, Roberto Luongo or Robbie Lawler?
Might be Luongo. Might be. I mean, he didn't give Robbie Lawler a shout out on his promo like Bilal Muhammad got a few weeks ago. Then he starts his promo talking about Fanatics Fest.
Yeah.
The punk rock CM Punk is slowly maturing. We'll state that. And he's asked frequently about WWE being on this hot streak, and what he's asked by fans, what do you credit this hot streak for? And he says the fans. And then he brings up like all these different fans that he has met, but whether over the weekend or in past interactions, including a girl at the autograph line that got up from her wheelchair telling Punk that she just beat cancer. And he mentions two other friends of his that are battling cancer, a woman who flew from Taiwan for 15 hours to get a picture with him, and another one flying from Jordan. Imagine going all the way from like Taiwan to Fanatics Fest.
So,
do you think that was the sole purpose of the trip?
I was gonna say, like I've actually I went to meet Kurt Angle at the Air Canada Center with my friend Jeff, who came here from Taiwan 10 years ago. Like, but
he flew all the way to Taiwan to meet Kurt Angle.
He told Kurt Angle, "Hey, I came all the way from Taiwan for this," and Kurt Angle gave him a personalized autograph. But I'm just saying. They probably came for more than just you, CM Punk. Maybe this was part of a big part of the draw, but they probably came for New York City as well.
He says those kinds of stories mean a lot to him, especially to him because I missed you for the last 10 years. Because I was just a recluse and I didn't have any fans to perform in front of. Like, it's not like this guy would. Like,
hold on a second. Don't you remember the CM Punk promo? Okay. The CM Punk wrestler, the pro wrestler CM Punk, was inactive for those several years after he left Ring of Honor, came back for AEW. Now this is the return of the CM Punk sports entertainer, I suppose. They're two different people, John.
Did you hear the question he was asked about AEW and deny? He was like, I'm paraphrasing, but that's not reality. All these things, like, I can perfectly understand someone with the benefit of time to reflect on things that can say, listen, was I perfect during my time there? No, there were a lot of issues in AEW, and they weren't solely on the shoulders of Phil Brooks. But to deny that, like, you didn't create some problems, to me is just like an absence of reality right there. That you were their number one star. The last thing in the world they wanted to do was fire you. And that's what they did. That's how bad things got. So I think you have to at least look at, listen, there were a lot of problems there. And I'm in a better place. I'm happy where I am. Cool. But to just deny, it's like none of that stuff is real. Like, people
so
say...
the specific quote was, so this was from Busted Open, is what you're referring to, right? The quote was,
Why don't you just read the quote if you have
I'm
it?
paraphrasing because I
Okay.
don't have it on me, but it was him saying that the whole stuff, like all what people are saying about him being a locker room cancer, he denied.
Right. And it's like, yeah, that's a strongly worded description, but were things all just peachy and perfect? Like, is that what you're like? There were a lot of problems, and I think you have to, as CM Punk, you have to be able to look objectively at yourself and realize, was I perfect in this scenario? I don't think you can come to that conclusion.
Right. Okay.
That would be my argument. So he continues on here. He thanks the fans that made him bracelets and gets in. It might be insignificant to other people, but maybe it's a Taylor Swift thing. But let's face it, I'm Taylor Swift for men.
Which I don't think is that crazy of a comparison. I mean, I don't know many people that are passionate for a celebrity, in wrestling, like CM Punk might command. So, sure.
All I wanted was for this strap match to get delayed until Bad Blood so they can license the song.
Well, they're probably going to have a match at Bad Blood too. So maybe
they've got to now. They've got to get that song.
I think that's a little expensive though.
No, that'll be a.
They already got Metro.
You think TKO can find find an amount to afford it?
Maybe they'll AI generate it and just promote it then.
Yes. So the bracelets are back. He says, let's talk. We talked about love. Let's talk about hate. Drew is obsessed with him. He made Drew a bracelet of his own as he shows off this big leather strap. Ran this by Adam Pearce and wants a strap match at Bash in Berlin. So he is tethered to Drew like he so desperately wants to be attached to me. And I want to whip this bitch. And he's going to take his bracelet back and leave Drew with lasting scars. So Drew comes out and he asks, Punk, you've seen me. Have you started drinking? I accept, but I need to get a receipt tonight for what you did to me last week, whipping my back, giving me a Instagram photo to share. And Punk says, I will hand you this strap and we can fight right now, but you have to give me the bracelet in exchange. And Drew explains that AJ and Larry are much happier and safer at home with me than you. So Punk says, Drew, you won't be safe in Berlin because you're attached to me. I thought this was going fine. I did feel like this audience, they kind of didn't know how to react to all this bracelet stuff at the end. And I felt like they really didn't land this promo at the end. It was like the teased physicality. You pulled that away. And I just didn't think they had like a great out to this at the end of this all.
I think the promo itself was really strong, but the closing line was not from Punk.
It ended with a whimper, and it started hot. And I liked all the stuff about, like, talking about the fans that he got to meet and stuff like that. But, I mean,
It felt like a rare case where, like, I don't know if Punk had, like, forgotten, a line that was supposed to close, or just maybe he was relying on improvisation and just didn't come up with something good enough. But it felt like a very unusual flat out to what was otherwise, I think, a pretty good segment.
It was like this audience was like, okay, we're not even getting, like, a exchange of strike. Like, we're getting nothing. Sure. And he's not giving him the bracelet. And I didn't know how much that really resonated with people, but they set up the match, so this is our fourth match that they've announced for Bash in Berlin.
I really enjoyed Punk's promo here, Yeah, pessimistically, you can interpret it as an extended Fanatics ad, but I thought it actually played perfectly to the story by allowing him to get into detail about, like, what the bracelet represents to him. It's not just about his wife and dog, but it's about, what seems to be a genuine love he feels for his audiences. It represents, a connection that he has to people who have used him as a source of strength for their real battles with illness, for instance. So this is also why I really don't understand Punk saying last week that Drew can keep the bracelet. I don't care. That to me completely was unnecessary, because it's very clear they are still using the bracelet as a MacGuffin here by Punk having.
Well, I think everyone interpreted last week as they were eliminating the bracelet stuff, because, like, there was enough fervor that people were not getting into it. And to be quite honest, like, in this promo, like, once the bracelet stuff got in, like, it did feel like this crowd kind of checked out of this. I don't know how many people are into the bracelet stuff, but you're completely right. Once you do that line last week and to bring it back this week, like, choose one. We can't drive down both lanes of the road here.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just me, but I didn't interpret maybe the audience derailing when he brought out the bracelets. I think it's an effective tool. It's an effective thing to use to motivate CM Punk to want to beat Drew McIntyre. In fact, I think it's a great segue into a strap match, which I thought Punk like really brilliantly explained about hey, like this is a guy who's obsessed with me. He constantly wants to be tethered to me, so why don't we do it literally by having a strap match? And of course, you know, the tying to the wrist, I think is thematically very appropriate here as well, with given the bracelets, you know, for the strap match. So I loved the entire promo, but didn't love its connection to what Punk said last week, and obviously a bit of a falter in the close here as well.
There was a Liv and Dominik promo, the most dominant couple in WWE. And Dom doesn't want to wait until Bash in Berlin. He challenges Priest tonight, stating, I'm not the Dominik I was before. And he challenges Priest to leave Ripley in the back. He'll leave Liv backstage if you're man enough. They showed Roberto Luongo and highlights of the Panthers winning the Stanley Cup. New Day and Odyssey Jones against Karrion Kross and AOP. So this was our second match of the night at 9:21 p.m. We were not heavy on wrestling matches on this show, but here we are in the second hour. Kingston tags himself in, and Woods is looking a bit confused. He wanted the tag, so Kingston starts the match with Karrion Kross. They get the heat on Kofi for a long time, and they knock Jones to the floor. And then Kofi is dragging himself to the corner. Woods is left on the apron, reaching for the tag when Odyssey pops up, and he steals the tag, getting in. And this was as clear as day. And Woods just turns, and this was his look. How did you interpret this look, Wai?
Oh, I don't know. I think there's a lot of subtext in this face here.
I think he was fine with this. He understands we're all on the same team, and as long as we get the W, that's what we're trying to achieve, and we're trying to help this rookie. So
we discussed this last week, John. This is not necessarily a sport of subtle acting.
Well, you know. Jones is in. There's a Trouble in Paradise to Karrion Kross moments later. Woods hits the limit break elbow, and then Akam runs into a sidewalk slam as Jones gets the pin in 8 minutes, and Xavier is looking upset, but ultimately celebrates with his team, and that was that.
Yeah. I think they are successfully building interest into the story, and at this point, the Final Testament really are not like it's not really even about them. Like, they're just almost like a generic group of villains you put on the other side. The tension is all between Woods and Kofi, and I think it's given those two the most interesting roles that they've each had in years. You know, prior to this, I think they were just kind of existing, coasting off of like whatever notoriety the New Day already had. But ever since they've been without Big E, they feel like they've lost something. Finally, they are cashing in on, I think, some of that confusion and turning it into a storyline teasing breakup. And I think they're doing a good job.
Priest and Ripley respond to this challenge in the back. Ripley brings up, and this is to the point of Babyface is not being outsmarted, thinks this is going to be a trap. Priest is like, I don't care if it's a trap. It's still a chance for me to get my hands on Dominik, and neither of us is going to stop until we pass judgment on this lame-ass Judgment Day. And Ripley says, and I quote, I like that.
Oh, God. Yeah, this was really corny. Like,
I think these two have got some awful dialogue. It just feels very... And this is something WWE has gotten away from, but this just felt like the worst of it. That they're two baby faces that were cramming down these new terms, and we're trying to make it so painfully obvious they're best friends, and I don't know. I did not like these two on this show.
No, you almost get the sense they're at the same time having these conversations. They're secretly trying to market like new T-shirts. And it just feels fake. I don't like the way like these lighting situations are even done to feel so produced. They're talking to each other like turned towards the camera. It just all feels really unnatural, and it's kind of taking the cool away from them.
That's it. They played the Afa and Awahi video that aired on SmackDown, and then Robbie Lawler, your former UFC welterweight champion, showing in the crowd, wide awake. Bronson Reed against The Miz, no disqualification match. Pierce is with The Miz backstage, and he thinks he should have just suspended Bronson Reed, but Miz requested this match and says, do you really want this match? And Miz says, I'm not sure. if I want it, but he took out R-Truth, and he's one of the few friends I have in this industry, and my friends are ones I fight for. So I might not want to do this, but I have to do it. So Miz comes out, and it's a no DQ match. So he immediately uses a chair on Bronson. Bronson blocks a chair shot with a forearm, and we get a bunch of weapons tossed into the ring, including the table that Miz pulls out for the giant pop. Reed does his tribute to Camille by breaking the kendo stick over his knee, which we just got a few days ago. And he then scoop slams Miz onto the trash can, stands on Miz's head while he takes a seat. Is this a submission?
If it hurts enough, yeah. I don't think it hurts that much, though.
This is even better than the tsunami. This should be his setup. So he continues. Tornado DDT by Miz lands on the chair, but Reed kicks out at 1, and then Reed staggers from these kicks, drops Miz with a clothesline. They tease a table spot with Reed putting him through with a Death Valley driver and a tsunami to win in 8 minutes and 19 seconds. But they've already taken out Rollins and Truth. We can't afford anyone else to do injury angles. So he climbs up for the second tsunami, but he is stopped when Braun Strowman marches down to the ring and stares off with Bronson Reed as the two monsters will have a match next week.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, like, I find the whole Miz aspect of this kind of interesting because not that long ago, they were hitting pretty hard this Miz-Truth potential breakup with Miz being very frustrated at, like, the situations that R-Truth has gotten him into. So they're either delaying it or they're using this to maybe further that story. But I just found it interesting because Miz seemed to, like, show some genuine, like, appreciation for R-Truth's friendship even after all of that. I like, crowd reacted really strongly to this match, especially the teases of Reed going through the corner table. So, and then like whenever the tsunami, was teased, incredible reaction for that too. So we've seen Reed take out smaller guys. Now let's see him take out a giant. This is a good next obstacle for Reed, and I think they're doing a great job with him.
I think this will be laid out really well next week as well. Like they've got that tsunami as like the most over like move on the show.
Mm-hmm.
They just come to their feet when this guy climbs up. It was very evident just after 2 angles over the last 2 weeks where this guy is, just in the course of 3 shows. Jackie is with Sheamus, who says, fair play to Butch. I mean, Pete Dunne. And he's interrupted by Kaiser, who calls Sheamus the opening act when I'm headlining tonight against Randy Orton. He's going to settle things with Sheamus and warns Kaiser that he broke his ribs and his skull, and you can find me around the corner at the bar tonight as I'm watching you take an RKO, which is pretty on point. It was exactly what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
Sheamus wasn't sticking around for the 3rd hour, much like a good percentage of the audience every week.
You want to beat traffic when you're trying to leave. Yeah.
Kathy Kelly is with Braun Breaker and asks him, what are your future plans? And he said that he has learned through Adam Pearce that there is a tournament beginning next week. Pearce can't stand how I'm progressing and going through the entire roster. He's trying to slow me down. And he says, it's not my fault I'm a badass. It's not my fault I'm a genetic freak. It's not my fault that my template is now Gene Snitsky. And it's not my fault that the dogs are barking in every city. And they will miss Pat McAfee, who gets this barking thing across to the audience. And it's not his fault. He earned this IC title. And whoever wins this tournament, he will spear them through the floor and give them the beating of a lifetime. And that will be my fault.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I came a long way to deliver this message, but yes.
I did not love this promo from Braun. I don't think I've really enjoyed his promos while he's been in this tweener role ever since winning the championship. I kind of preferred when he was just this like straight up intimidating guy, more so leaning on towards the heel side. I think they're trying too hard to get his catchphrases over. I don't need him saying I'm a badass or like even I'm a genetic freak. At least
he's the unpredictable badass. Isn't that the full nickname?
Yeah. Like I don't like it when he's trying to get people to bark for him. It just again it kind of takes away some of the cool factor away. But hey, like people are barking for him, so maybe I'm in the minority.
He's getting over in this role, but yeah. It's certainly the physical presentation that is the strong suit for him here. I think he's still finding his way with his delivery, but nonetheless. That tournament begins next week. Dominik, Mysterio, and Damian Priest, yet another match that did not get started because Priest is jumped by Carlito, JD McDonough, and Finn Balor. He fights them all off with a chair. Then he's eyeing Balor, and JD yanks the chair away, so he gets tossed, and Carlito saves Balor from taking a chokeslam, so Carlito and JD eat super kicks. Then Rhea appears from behind Dominik, and Priest and Rhea, you may know them as the Terror Twins, they block Dominik from exiting, so he is hit with a headbutt and a strike, and Ripley clears the desk, goes for the riptide to Dominik, the spot that they keep teasing, and they take it away from you again as Liv appears, nailing Rhea from behind with a chair, and the crowd's chanting yeet, but Jay wasn't coming to anyone's aid here at all.
Yeah, I think they're underestimating, or like they're not making enough of a connection between the Jey Uso Rhea Ripley thing that they've established months ago. And I think it made Jay look kind of bad to not come out here to make a save.
It was a very audible chant as well that they were waiting for here. And Liv takes Ripley by her injured shoulder and rams it into the post twice. Priest is hit with the coup de grace. An Oblivion was nailed onto Ripley, and then Dominik ending it with the frog splash as the lame-ass Judgment Day stand tall and took ownership of the purple backlight.
Yes. Yeah, very good reactions from the crowd, though, for all of this stuff. It gives the Judgment Day, I guess a lame-ass new Judgment Day, a much-needed moment of dominance here. Balances the scales of judgment a little bit, yes.
Justice.
Yes. So, yeah, I think the only misstep was not having Jey Uso, or at least having some explanation of where Jey Uso was.
Oh, he had a busy night, though. You can't put him into...
What, he had to enter this tournament, I guess? I guess he was busy with Adam Pearce. Maybe that they could have just explained that.
After the break, Judgment Day brag about the beatdown. Balor warns them that's just a sample of what they're going to see in Berlin. And Dominik says, Damian Priest, you were champion because of the Judgment Day, and now you aren't champion because of us. And Liv says, Dom is all man, and at Bash in Berlin, she's going to make Rhea Ripley her bitch.
Yeah.
Isla Dawn and Alba Fyre against Damage Control and the Pure Fusion Collective. Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. For the women's tag titles. Sky looked really good here at the beginning. Then they tried this double team move. Okay. So
what was
Sky went to press Kyrie into the air. And the idea was for her to like springboard to the opponents on the floor. But she came up so short that she came down and bounced stomach first off the top rope and flipped over into like a somersault and just landed on them. I just said last week how when there's usually a screwed up spot, the announcers call attention to it. Not Michael Cole. He was so amazed by this. He was like, that was so unique. He was dude, this was, I mean, thankfully, like, it did turn into an offensive maneuver by Kairi Sane, but I mean, Jesus Christ, this could have been a disaster, and it kind of was.
It was one of those things where, like, she happened to land effectively on the opponents so that you could justify this as being an offensive move.
I meant to do that.
And even Kairi was so surprised. She's like, yeah, she's like overly enthusiastic about her own landing, just to kind of try to convince us that she meant to do it.
Could you imagine if she didn't get that bounce and just like down on that top rope? Like, I was amazed she got the bounce up. So I mean, they tried to cover it as best they could. This is when Io gets this big tag. She's delivering shotes, a double springboard missile drop kick. Great sequence as she gets the crowd going, hits the bullet train attack into opposite corners, and then they hit a double team suplex onto Alba Fyre. Sane is in and spears Fire, knocking DeVille off the apron, and Baszler capitalizes. Stark hits a DVD Shining Wizard combo with Baszler onto Sane, and then they do bring up the history between Kairi and Shayna Baszler for the Mae Young Classic fans. The Kirifuda clutch gets broken, and Sane goes for the insane elbow as Isla tags herself in, and as Sane comes off the top, she's caught in the Kirifuda. Dawn hits a backstabber to Baszler, who's still got the choke applied, and Elba hits the swan dive off the top as the champions retain in 9 minutes and 9:25.
I thought the finish was really cool. You know, the way they just kind of structured everything and had everybody work really fast towards that rush towards the finish, and then I think a really well designed sort of a three-way sequence there.
How did the six fuse?
Purely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There was a lot of focus put on Kyrie and Io here as the lone babyface group. And I think Io looks great, but there's something up with Kyrie saying, really, like in this run over the past year, she has not looked good. I think her timing has been all over the place. That initial sort of like double jump weirdness, which you would have never attributed a mistake like that to Kyrie years ago. There's no way you can convince me that that's what she was intending to do. Now we shall see next week. Maybe they pull it off again. Exactly as
Kyrie, we can't sell that was a screw up. So you got to do that move in all of our matches now, and you're gonna just take a belly flop on the top rope every night.
There was also like an incredibly awkward moment where like it seemed like either Shayna was too early delivering her knee, or Kyrie was late going up to the top for her high cross, but it necessitated Shayna basically having to phantom sell a knee tweak in order to delay her reaction from catching Kyrie jumping up the top. Just something has been up with Kyrie Sane, and it just, she has not looked I think the way that we are used to seeing her. But overall, the crowd, I think, is responding well to the Sky Pirates, or former Sky Pirates, as a babyface team, just because they love them. But I do think they need some dialogue. They need some character work to explain why they're suddenly like such enthusiastic babyfaces that are trying to cater towards the crowd, looking for reactions to every single one of their moves every time. I almost think they're being a little too overboard. It's almost like they got the direction that, hey, we're baby faces this week, and all of a sudden we have to do all of our sort of like tropey baby face things. So I think they should be more like cool baby faces, which is I think what the look in their promo suggests. But anyway, Dawn and Fire get a good win before the Jade and Belair feud, so they definitely needed something like that.
Jackie is with Jey Uso, who explains that Sami Zayn is taking time off to clear his head, but he'll be back with a vengeance. Jey is still aiming for a singles title. He is entering the IC title tournament.
So yeah, I wonder what's going on here. You know, like we thought it would be Jey and Sami going for the tag team titles relatively quickly. This seems like a bit of a detour for Jey. So maybe they're just kind of pausing things because Survivor Series is still pretty far away.
Yes. So we will see the long and winding royal road for Jey and Sami. Mm-hmm. Cole gives us an update that Yeet is now part of the Scrabble dictionary, and then we get a really somber farewell to Pat McAfee, who Michael Cole calls one of his best friends on the planet. So the Miz and Michael Cole, open hearts on this show, and he then says he's leaving for a few months to go do college football.
Yeah,
it's like, it's gonna be okay, Michael.
Kayla Braxton like left, and I don't even think they put her on TV. Like they had her do like a backstage skit or something. They give a whole video, like I don't know, 2-minute video of highlights for Pat McAfee leaving for 4 months. This was kind of silly.
Yeah, could you imagine like Sid going off to do like softball in the spring, like the send offs he would have gotten this around now? Would have been totally received differently, I think. And then we go to a video package about Pat McAfee's last run during this past year. So it was a surprise video that he wasn't expecting, and he explains how he feels at home here. He'll be back in a few months, and it's a dream come true, and it's all due to Michael Cole.
Sure.
And then the show ended. The credits rolled. It was a wonderful end to Raw.
Mm-hmm. They should just put the championship on him. You know, let him retire with the world title.
Man, they could have had Bronson Reed kill this guy too. That could have been an option.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So next week we have Uncle Howdy and Chad Gable, Bronson Reed, Braun Strowman, and the beginning of your IC title tournament. But main event: Randy Orton, Ludwig Kaiser. Orton just threw this guy across the ring with a fallaway slam that Pat compared to someone in Florida throwing a keg at 4 a.m. They go to the floor. Kaiser is dropped on the desk, and Gunther jumps over the timekeeper's area, and he is ringside watching this, and it leads to a distraction as Kaiser chop blocks the knee. But during the commercial break, Randy Orton got patella surgery, and his knee was all fully recovered by the time we came back. And he lifts up Kaiser for 4 consecutive suplexes onto the desk as Gunther just stands there and watches this. He's eyeing Gunther. Kaiser stops a draping DDT, snapping his neck on the top rope, and Cole calls this a breakout performance for Ludwig Kaiser. It's like, it's a match. I saw some breakout performances this weekend. Not in this country, but I don't know if this would qualify. And Orton hits a superplex, draping DDT, calls for the RKO. There's a schoolboy counter as our tease that maybe it won't be hit, and then he pops up and is hit with the RKO. And Gunther just watched all of this, 14-24, and Gunther charges at him. He is met with punches, and I thought, man, are they going to hit this guy with the RKO after he just promised he would never get hit with it? And I swear to God, the last thing you see on this show is the last thing that Gunther saw, because he then was poked in the eye like a Three Stooges spot. And that's how Raw ended, just abruptly after this finger to the eye.
Out of nowhere.
That's it. Out of nowhere. Yeah. That was it.
Yeah. Well, the match I thought was a very good, well-paced match. Good, incredible reactions to these Orton matches. Just like really makes the pacing of them work. And it just built to like a good hot brawl to close. Not honestly much else to say about it. They're just
you don't get too many great pacing chants from crowds.
They're really just kind of they've done the feud here. I would have liked to have heard more promos talking about Randy's disappointing sort of lineage and how he screwed up throughout the years. But this was just kind of a week where they got more physical. Maybe next week we're getting more talky.
Can't wait. Yeah, more.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the match. I can't say tonight really did the whole lot for this feud. It just was, advancing things. They're having a match. That's the headline. Tonight's Raw, I would say my favorite thing on the show was Sheamus and Pete Dunne. I thought that was really good.
That was definitely the best match.
I think it might have been the best segment, period.
Yeah. I enjoyed the Drew Punk promo segment. Trying to think what else was kind of maybe worth watching.
You're loving this New Day stuff, so that
I'm enjoying it. Yeah,
let's move forward. So, this wasn't one of the more spectacular episodes of Raw. Like wrestling wise, I just feel like it was kind of ho hum except for the opener, but nonetheless, it's a hot company, and the crowd reacted fairly well throughout. Robbie Lawler and Roberto Luongo included.
Oh yeah, sure.
All right. Well, let's go to the forum, and if you want to throw in a super chat, you're more than welcome to do so.
Yeah, we actually have several super chats here. First of all, thank you guys for watching us live here at youtube.com/postwrestling. We're live for Rewind a Raw, Rewind a Dynamite, Rewind a SmackDown as well for members of the Post Wrestling Cafe. Right after these shows are done. So let's go to our super chats. First of all, let's go to Dickie Bird and Mr. Chop Tease himself, who's been a member of our YouTube channel for 21 months. You're a funny guy, John. Glad the branding iron is now at the post office.
Yeah, that was a joke for one there.
Yes.
Dickie was actually the
lineage of this branding iron, I think, is becoming stuff of legend. Okay,
it goes in succession from Terry Funk, the lapsed fan, Dickie Bird, to the post office.
That's right. Yeah. So where's it going next? I wonder.
I might give it to I might donate it to the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Okay.
They could use a spark.
Very good. Let's go to Bluey. Bluey himself, who sends 100 rupees. I didn't know Bluey dealt with rupees. Bluey says, with Cody's quarter outdrawing Reigns last week and this week not popping a number, is it safe to say that Cody's still the top drawing babyface in WWE?
I haven't looked at the quarters, to be quite honest. I mean, the SmackDown had a fine number on Friday. I would not be weighing this as an indictment of either one. I would state that I would say Cody does feel in the number one spot based on a lot of factors. Like you saw at the head of Fanatics that was just talking about, like, Cody, like, he's the benchmark now. Like, he is the guy that is pushing merchandise really strong. And I think to the average consumer, I think they look at Cody as the number one star. But I mean, you've got an embarrassment of riches at this point. Like, it was not all that long ago that we talked about just the lack of quality baby faces in this company, and it's like baby faces that make your business really rock, and they've got two outstanding ones at the moment in Cody and Roman Reigns. It's not Austin and Rock, but it's very rare they've had two super hot baby faces as they do in these two at the moment.
To even have somebody rivaling, Roman Reigns, if you suggested that 2 years ago, I don't know how many of us would have been able to imagine it. So I think it's an incredible success story for him. And I'm curious, like, how far somebody like a CM Punk might be. You know, like, who's number 3? You know, like, and also your guys like Jey Usos and LA Knights that seem to be doing really well too when it comes to merchandising and everything else. So thank you very much for that, Bluey. Let's go to Matthew England, who sends $20 to say, short message tonight as I've been busy with work. Just wanted to thank you guys for the awesome coverage and content. John's character is what wrestling media should be. Did I miss it, or was there no Pollock and Thurston last week?
No, we were off last week, but we are back this Wednesday before All In. So tune in Wednesday. We'll go over the schedule before the end of the show.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for that super chat, Matthew. He also sends $2 to ask, any plans to attend Survivor Series or Bad Blood?
If they license Taylor Swift, we might have to go to Atlanta. But no, I don't think we'll be going to either of those shows coming up this year. I don't expect going to any wrestling shows for the rest of this year unless something pops up out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Matthew. Let's lastly go to Andrew Brown, who sends $5 to say, did you know Taylor Swift babysat Jeff Jarrett's kids?
Yeah, she's got the wrestling tie-ins. It's very tight with the Jarretts. So there you have it.
I did know that.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, everyone, for the super chats. We go on over to Muggin on the forum. A decent outing that did a lot to put heat on Bronson Reed and Judgment Day. Sheamus and Dunne was very good with a great finish. The build to Orton and Gunther continues to hum along, and Punk McIntyre got their strap match set. Yes, correct. They did.
Let's go to Jermaine, Jermaine from the Chicago, who says, Raw was okay, but not a great show for me. I really don't think anything stood out this week, but I do have some questions for you two. Randy Orton has been wrestling for 20 years. Is it amazing? Longer than 20 years. Is it amazing to y'all, no matter what the wrestler background is, Lucha, European, or British, that all his matches look like a Randy Orton match?
Listen, he's got it. No. He's got his Randy Orton match, and he is very calculated. What other descriptions?
We've also never seen him wrestle outside of the WWE. I mean, what he wrestles is you could interpret as very much a WWE house style. So, you know, if he ever ventured, I don't know if he ever went to Mexico to wrestle in a Mexican company.
Oh, then the tornillos would come out and such. But listen, he knows what he does really well, and I think he is fantastic at building to those spots that a crowd is just going to go nuts for, and he plays them to perfection. Like he's a very good wrestler, but you know, when people kind of go crazy about like this guy is like, am I going to say this guy's like top 10 in the world? No. And I don't think he's ever been.
That's top 10 not in the his world. Ambition. I don't think it's ever been.
But like, is anyone like dreading this match with Gunther? Far from it. Like, I think they'll have an excellent match together. And there's times he has like really excellent matches, but he's like a great, very good match performer.
Sure.
That's rarely like going to be that guy that is, you know, that is going to be, you know, blowing your mind with like some match that's going to be so state of the art and revolutionary. But he's got like, if this was not working, I think he'd be savvy enough to change with it. But I think he has his Randy Orton type of match, and he knows how to change things around, but he knows what the key things are to build the match towards. And 9 times out of 10, the audience goes along with that ride for him.
He also asked, how did the name Butch really keep Pete Dunne down as a wrestler from a storyline point? If he was Pete Dunne, would he still not have been in a mid-card faction brawling brutes? Would he be fighting Cody or Roman for a title as Pete Dunne? Well, you have no idea what a nickname might do to somebody, okay? Like, you can argue, I don't know, like what it probably affected his confidence in some way. Don't you think the name Shorty G would have affected Chad Gable's mentality somehow? You know, if we're talking storyline, so maybe
when you physically turn a man into an animal, like the Red Rooster, or remember when like Tugboat was like he was the actual boat.
Yes.
So when you turn people into objects and animals, that's a tough one to come back from.
Yeah. All right, you're next.
We go on to Brian from New Jersey. Thank you as always, Jermaine. It's great to hear from you. We could have asked him about the Cody Roman debate. Maybe he would have given us some perspective on where they stand. Decent enough Raw. I likely won't remember by next week. Always a sign of a great 3 hours spent. Sheamus versus Dunne was very good, and the in-ring peak. What I really want to write about is the G1. Count me as one of those very happy to see Zack Sabre Jr. win. For years, it felt like he was one of the best wrestlers currently active, sometimes better than Bryan Danielson in the years he was both active and not active, hoping he ascends into the main event scene, wins the title in October, and holds it past January. In regards to the post-contest, I ended up tied with Ichiban Butthole. Better than losing to it. Congratulations, Brian.
Ichiban Butthole was it was one of those things where we're actually debating about whether or not we could include, because believe it or not, we had to get rid of some entries because they were offensive, I guess. Ichiban Butthole made the cut, and
yeah, we're classy but within reason.
Yes. All right, and that's it.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for the feedback. Coming up later on this week on Tuesday, we have got that time of the month. It is the wellness policy. 1 Eastern, open topics. What are you hoping? What are you hoping to hear about, Wai?
So I want to say congratulations to Jordan Goodman on getting married this weekend to his fiance, and
what a trooper! And he's back tomorrow.
We will be talking about that, I'm sure. Among many other things, the wellness policy. We occasionally like to do these, especially when we don't really have a great suggestion for a topic. So we leave it open to you guys. Whatever you want to talk about, just call in and chat and hang out in the chat room. 1 p.m. Eastern time at youtube.com/postwrestling.
It's wonderful listening. As I said, the only show out there that I can do my work and listen to at the same time. It's that soothing. So that's coming up Tuesday. Wednesday, I'm back with Brandon Thurston at 3 Eastern. And then Wednesday night, we've got Rewind to Dynamite. And Thursday on the Post Wrestling Cafe, I should mention first, on Wednesday, we'll be dropping for Cafe members. It is the month of MCU Hater with WH Park and Rich Fan. I did not come up with that name. That's a WH signature. And this week they're welcoming Cam Hawkins onto the show from The Ringer, and they are going to be chatting about X-Men Apocalypse. Have you seen this movie, Wai?
I have, and I really wish I haven't. So, last month I thought worked so well. It was so nice to hear our friends at MCU Later do essentially weekly shows in the lead up to Wolverine and Deadpool. I almost felt like we were missing them, especially there were certain entries in the X-Men sort of catalog that they intentionally skipped because they did not contain either Wolverine or Deadpool, and also because they're awful movies. And I think one of those is X-Men Apocalypse, which we are forcing these two to watch. In addition to these two movies, they will also be talking about some of the worst in the X-Men catalog, including Dark Phoenix, including New Mutants. So I cannot wait for some of those.
And everything about MCU Hater, it all leads up to the return of Wai Ting to MCU Later, as you have been asked to join them for, I don't know if it's a surprise yet, but you will be on in the coming weeks.
I have been summoned, and I have been summoned to perhaps review the worst comic book movie of all time. So postwrestlingcafe.com for that.
I'm not watching any of these movies, but the one you're doing, I am going to watch it.
Goodness.
For that reason. So I will watch that one.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I believe we might actually release the first episode for free, not on Wednesday, but the day after as well, just as a preview for everybody. So listen to WH Rich and Cam Hawkins on MCU Hater.
Also on the cafe on Thursday, and if you are a new member of the cafe during G1 season, we hope you stick around, because on Thursday we are chatting WrestleMania 10 on Rewind Away. Myself and Wai, we will go back to March of 1994, Bret Hart versus Owen Hart, Shawn Michaels versus Razor Ramon. But as much as those two matches are applauded and well remembered, there is some utter garbage on this show too, and we will balance it all out. From, we talk about all these mainstream celebrities in WWE. Boy, 1994, we had Cy Sperling, we had Burt Reynolds, legitimate star, Jenny Garth. Yeah. So you had some relevant celebrities, but again, when the president of the Hair Club for Men is one of your advertised celebrities, I mean, there is a ceiling in 1994 WWF. But we will go back and relive 1994. We'll go through everything that was going in and around WrestleMania 10 along with a show review. So that's coming up Thursday, and we won't get into everything that's coming up this weekend, but suffice to say, we'll have plenty of coverage of All In, where I can break this news. Representing Post Wrestling there as credentialed media at Wembley Stadium, our man is now our reporter, Neil Flanagan. Boots on the ground at Wembley Stadium this coming Sunday, and he will be there. He will be filing a report afterward. He'll be at the press conference tentatively, and Wai and I will be live as soon as the show ends. So, 1 p.m. start time for the main card. I don't know when the show is going to end, but when it does, flip on over to the Post Wrestling YouTube channel. Wai and I will be live to go through the return to Wembley.
Looking forward to it. Looking forward to hearing from our man as well.
Okay. That's it. Tune in Tuesday night for Up Next and a ton of great shows coming your way at Post Wrestling and postwrestlingcafe.com. And that wraps up Rewind to Raw.